I personally made a pretty big deal the week of the Auburn game talking about how I thought LSU could break the will of the Auburn team and fan base inside that stadium that night on the Plains. They were in a bad way. Penn State had embarrassed them. They didn't play well at all against Missouri. None of it looked good. And Brian Harsin was very likely on his way out. Turns out he was. And I thought, man, if you can get up on these guys 14-0, 17-0, you can break them. They'll lay down. We know what happened. LSU came out. Auburn played great early in the football game, took a big lead. The crowd was there, was present, was fired up, and LSU had a fight on its hands for the entire game. I'm very careful and cautious when I talk about teams laying down or quote unquote quitting. It very rarely happens. Very rarely. I can think of two instances where I think SEC football teams did not give 100% effort. You go back to 2011 at Ole Miss, Houston Nutt was on his way out. There was no doubt about it. They opened the season with the loss to BYU. They went to Vanderbilt and got crushed 30-7. Georgia got after them. Bama beat them 52-7, and the wheels kind of started coming off. And for the last 3 weeks of that season, I don't believe Ole Miss's team was in it. They played Louisiana Tech and got smoked 27-7. You remember number one, LSU went to Oxford. That's the game where Mettenberger went out the back gate and they ended up taking a knee with like 6 minutes to go in the game. Final score 52-3. And then they went into the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State and lost 31-3. So over the last 3 weeks of the season, Louisiana Tech, LSU, Mississippi State, they scored a total of 13 points. 27-7 loss to Tech, 52-3 to LSU, and 31-3 to Mississippi State. I think they quit. They were bad. I think they quit. And the next year, Auburn, under Gene Chizik, when that was falling apart, I think they mailed it into. You look at that schedule, their last two SEC games, they got outscored by a total of 87-0. Georgia beat them 38-0, and Alabama beat them 49-0. Heck, a couple weeks before that, Johnny Manziel scored 63 on them. I don't think that Auburn team was in it. But I bring up these two examples to highlight that it's rare that it happens. Look at LSU the last couple of years. Fired coach, COVID skeleton roster. The 2020 team went to the Swamp and won, beat Ole Miss at the end of the season. Last year they played hard and beat Texas A&M. That's generally what happens. Guys usually play hard, even if coaches are fired or seasons aren't going well. Sometimes you get beat because you're not any good. But guys usually play hard. This A&M situation is a bad one. It is toxic. Their offense has been bad. Their coach is mired in trouble. They're answering questions every week. Buy out this, buy out that. The recruiting class doesn't look great. Like, there are a lot of issues in College Station. But I am not even close to forecasting that A&M will lay down against LSU. In fact, I think it'll be the opposite. I believe that stadium will be full. I think that Saturday was an outlier. You were playing maybe the worst team in the country in UMass. It was at 11 o'clock in the morning. It was cold and raining. I know it was empty. Nobody's going to go to that game. But A&M, we know they're a little different. They're a little bit different. That's what they love about themselves. You all hear the term, from the inside you can't explain it, from the outside you can't understand it. Well, that's for damn sure. I cannot understand the stuff y'all do. But it is a close-knit group and a close-knit university alumni fan-based program. They're very much like Auburn in that way. We saw Auburn turn out for Cadillac Williams in that game against A&M. We saw what that environment was like after a coach had been fired. I expect the same thing tomorrow in Kyle Field. The weather's going to be good. It's a night game. LSU's in town. There will be a great environment inside Kyle. Now, you take control of the football game. I think the air may be a little bit easier to let out than usual. You get up 24-7 in the third. Some people might fall out. They're upset with Jimbo, no doubt about it. They are mad. A lot of people have given up on him. They say he's never going to change. He's not going to be able to fix it. We're stuck with this guy. There's a faction of that fan base that is mad at him, and if things go ugly and they can't move the football on Saturday night, they may bail. But to start that game, it's going to be a hornet's nest. I'm confident in saying that. They don't like LSU. They've got an opportunity, not for anything that's on their plate, but they can wreck it. Same way LSU went to Florida a couple years ago. Nothing on LSU's plate there, but Florida had a chance to get into the playoff that year. Trask was playing unbelievable. He was a Heisman candidate, and LSU had an opportunity to do something about it, and they did. That's what you're going to get effort-wise from A&M on Saturday in Kyle Field. Do not look at what you saw last week and think that's what you're going to see tomorrow. And how could you, as a 19-year-old, as a 20-year-old, not come out of the tunnel with 100,000 people waving towels and get a shot of life going through you? How could you not? Now they start filing out and you're down again and you're getting punched in the mouth. That may change the calculus a little bit. But I think it's going to be a great environment inside Kyle on Saturday. Question is, can A&M play with LSU? And I rattled off all those stats on Wednesday's show. I mean, they are staggering in terms of how bad Texas A&M has been against the run. They are one of the best pass defenses statistically in the country. The reason for that is not because they got a bunch of pros running around back there and it's a no-fly zone. It's the fact that nobody tries to throw it because they're running it for 6 yards a carry. A&M worst run defense in the conference. Most 10-plus yard running plays in the conference allowed. Is LSU wired to take advantage of that? That's the question. How healthy is Josh Williams? How healthy is John Emery? Is Kane capable of running downhill? Is it Daniels that's got to do it? The one pause I have about this game has nothing to do with A&M's offense because it stinks on ice. It has everything to do with the fact that LSU is not necessarily wired to just hand the ball off and beat you down. They don't have. If they had, one of these NFL backs that LSU's had over the last 25 years, man, I would feel great about that. If Fournette or Geis were showing up. But LSU's not necessarily built like that. And the offensive line has had its issues at times in short yardage, has had its issues in pass protection at times. Those guys have got to show up and they got to play. They've got to do a great job. If LSU proves early in the game that they can run the football, it's not going to get any better for A&M because they're low on numbers there at the defensive front. They got a bunch of young guys playing, and man, there's nothing more demoralizing on a football field than when a team just lines up and runs it on you and runs it on it and runs it on you. And that's what teams have done time and time and time again. Ole Miss ran the football 63 times on Texas A&M. 63 carries for 390 yards. Auburn ran it 55 times for 270. Arkansas ran it 54 times for 244. Teams just keep going and going and going and going. That hadn't been LSU's MO this year. We'll see if that's what they try to do. Again, I look at the stats and go, man, best pass defense in the conference. Man, LSU may have some issues kind of exploiting that. I mean, LSU can make some plays one-on-one with these A&M corners. They just haven't had a lot of action because teams are just running it at them. And I gave you this stat on Wednesday. In the SEC games, not Mississippi State, teams are averaging 51 carries for 267 on this defense. That is 5.2 per carry. Big plays, chunk plays, 5 yards a pop. Every which way teams have taken advantage of them. And that's the way you can take the crowd out of it as well. Not much to get up and cheer about if you can take it right to them. That's what LSU's hope will be in this game. Still no huge update from Jimbo on the injury situation. I wouldn't expect that he would have given big-time injury updates. Evan Stewart and Devon Achane are the two absolute keys. If they don't have those two guys, their really only playmaker is Moose Muhammad at that point. Like, they become just him, assuming he doesn't want to put his sleeves on when he can't play. So we got more to dive into with this game. But I think for me, I wanted to start with this is going to be a really good environment. And LSU's going to have to respond to that. They've done it pretty well all year. They're going to have to do it once again. Hopefully it starts a little bit better than the Auburn game did. But hey, we know what LSU's done in second halves as well. So there's nothing statistically or trend-wise that would point you in the direction of this being a really tough game. It just feels to me like it's going to be. That's just my read on it here as we sit a little bit over 24 hours away from kickoff.